My name is Alec, and I am a final year medical student. I'm going to explain to you guys how I approach studying for Step 1. I sat Step 1 in January of 2025, and I passed on the first try. Just a little disclaimer before starting this video. I'm explaining what worked for me. What I did might not work for you, and just know that there are other methods out there. First, let's discuss what is Step 1. There are 3 exams that you must take to become a fully qualified doctor in the US. Step 1, Step 2, and Step 3. The first exam, Step 1, has to do with all your preclinical knowledge. This exam is a pass-fail exam. It's difficult to say what the passing grade actually is, but from my experience and what other people have said, it's around 60%. Not passing Step 1 on the first try is not the end of the world, although it's obviously better if you can pass it the first time around. The exam itself is 8 hours long, where you have a 1-hour break. You can take the breaks as you please during the exam, as long as the total amount of time does not surpass 1 hour. It's 1 hour if you skip the tutorial. If you decide to do the tutorial, it's only 45 minutes. So, what I'd like to discuss first is the resources available for studying for Step 1. There are a million resources, and it's so easy to get overloaded. I tried a lot of resources, and I'm gonna break down what worked best for me. I will have all the resources linked down in the description where you can find them. The first resource, and this is your holy Bible, First Aid. This book is amazing when you're getting started. It has every single section, and it's a lot of information. Now, you could just sit down and learn every single chapter, but that's not how I would recommend to do it. The way I did it is by using my second resource, Anking for Step 1. Anking uses Anki, which is a flashcard app that you can download on your computer or tablet. They're pre-made cards which you can use with the First Aid book. When you get a card correct, it'll hide that card for a certain amount of time. There's an algorithm that'll decide when it's the best time to show you that card again. As you keep seeing the cards over time, they get reinforced in your brain. This is called spaced repetition. So, how would I recommend using both First Aid and Anki? First, choose a section. Let's just say, for example, MSK. What I would do is go to the first topic of MSK in the Step 1 First Aid book. I would then read over that topic. I would then go into Anki and I would do those cards specific to that chapter and that topic. And I would just rinse and repeat and keep doing that and keep adding on different cards. Now, a word of warning, this can get very, very overwhelming. There were days where I found myself essentially addicted to Anki and I was doing over 1,000 cards a day. What I will say for using Anki is just know your limits. Don't try and pile on too much, because there are other things that you need to study that are outside of Anki. The next resource that I would recommend is Sketchy Micro. Microbiology is one of the biggest sections that you need to study for Step 1. It is so overwhelming, and unlike every other topic, it feels like you're just learning random stuff and random names, other than biochemistry, but we'll talk about that later. I believe that Sketchy have a free trial for maybe around a week and then you need to pay for a membership. But I promise you, their videos are top tier and it is absolutely worth it. They basically use fun characters and cartoons to remember the names of the really niche and weird things you need to know in microbiology. It also makes the studying kind of fun, to be honest with you, as sad as that sounds. Speaking of things that are impossible to remember what I was talking about a minute ago? Biochemistry? Yeah. Biochemistry may have been my worst and most hated section when studying for USMLE Step 1. It's just like absurd. It's absolutely absurd. In my opinion, there's no real value to it, but listen, we still have to learn it. What I used is YouTube videos from a YouTuber called Dirty Medicine. If I could express to you how much I love Dirty Medicine's videos, he explains everything so simply, so well, and he talks about all the high yield information. As everything else, I'll link it in the description down below. Big ups to him. You have to watch his videos for biochemistry. Also, speaking about Dirty Medicine, he does have a video on how you should actually prepare for the big day, which I also really do recommend watching. Another resource that I would like to discuss is Pathoma. So I actually did buy Pathoma and I had their book, but I never used it on its own. The reason I didn't use it on its own was because it was actually already integrated into the Anki cards, and I happened to be doing the relevant topics anyways. What most people say is the first 3 chapters of Pathoma are the important ones to do for step 1. Now I'm going to quickly talk about a resource that personally didn't really work for me. Boards and Beyond was a resource that I had heard a lot about, and it's not bad, but it just wasn't for me. What I found when I was watching Boards and Beyond is that I was kind of watching them just to watch them, and yeah, it's good and it can help you understand a topic. But in my opinion, it's also really expensive for what it is. And there are free YouTube videos that you can find online that will explain basically the same thing. Now, if you've given it a try and you like it, so be it. Use it. There's absolutely no problem with using it. The next resource that I used, and this is an absolute must in my opinion, is UWorld for step 1. Now, again, this is quite expensive. I don't remember the exact price, but I think it's somewhere around $549 or something like that. But it is essential. It has a bunch of questions that look the exact same as the real questions on the day. It breaks everything down by topic, and when you do your questions, they have really good and thorough explanations. And again, when you're using UWorld, you should be using it in conjunction with this book that we were talking about earlier on, First Aid for Step 1, and you should be using it with Anking as well if you decide to use that. There is a cool add-on that you can use for Anki, where basically you can take the ID of a UWorld question and paste it into Anki, and it will show you those Anki cards that are relevant from Anking. So you can do that to further reinforce things that you don't know. Once again, I will link that down below. In my opinion, you should aim for at least 1 full pass through of UWorld if you can. But again, everybody's gonna be different, so go at your own pace. Also, I should note, do not get too obsessive with the grades that you get on UWorld. What you should realize at the end of the day is UWorld is a learning tool. It is not an actual test. It is not the real test. There are also some practice exams on UWorld. They're okay, I use them, but they aren't, in my opinion, the most accurate. Some people would debate me on that, but that's just my opinion. For me, doing them won't be do or die. I think there are better resources that you can use, which we will discuss these next. The last resource that I want to talk about are NBMEs. NBMEs are basically official mock exams that come from the people who write the Step 1 exam. I can't remember exactly how many there are. I think there's about like 6 or 7. Now, these do cost money. I forget the exact price. I think it's around like maybe $60. But in my opinion, it is very worth it. And I did all of them. It gives you a really good indication at where you're at. When you do these exams, you should do them as if you were doing the real thing. What you should do when you finish the exam is go through every single question, whether you got it right or you got it wrong, and make sure to look at every single option to see the reasoning as to why they put that as an option there. What I really like about the NBMEs is the more that you do, it shows you your progression for each topic, and then what you can do is focus on your weak points. Now, people talk a lot about what grade you should be getting on the NBMEs before writing the exam. Now, keep in mind, this is not solid. Some people might get this grade and not pass, and some people might get lower and pass. But generally what I hear is if you get about 268% or over, you're good. And just keep in mind the latest exams are meant to be the most accurate to the current Step 1 exam. So what I'd like to talk about next is how long should you take to study for Step 1? It depends if your school gives you dedicated time to study for Step 1. It took me 12 months to study for the exam. The reason it took me 12 months is because I had to juggle my medical school on top of everything, which did not give me a dedicated time to study for Step 1. Also, when I started studying for Step 1, I kept changing my methods and I couldn't find one solid method that worked for me until a couple months in. So I do think 12 months is on the higher end. If I were to guess on average how long people prep for Step 1, I would say maybe around 6 months. But again, it varies from person to person. The most important thing is to not rush yourself and to do things at your own pace. I knew in myself that I'd rather take 12 months and be more likely to pass it on the first try than to rush it and to fail it on the first try. Now, if you fail Step 1 on the first try, it's not the end of the world, but it is obviously better to pass the first time. Just remember, it's not a deal breaker, but it won't make your life easier. I would also heavily recommend to write out a schedule on what topics you want to get done on what days and to plan out your whole entire study time. And most importantly, within that time, make sure to carve out some time for some rest. Step 1 is an absolute beast of an exam, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. Make sure you consistently work every day, and when coming up closer to the exam, ramp it up a little bit. But one thing is that it is absolutely not viable to be studying 9 to 10 hours a day for like 6 to 10 months. Something else which I think it is important to discuss is how much is all of this going to cost? Now it depends which resources you want to use and not use. The only definite number that I can give you is the exam to sit and to go through the whole process of the applications is about, I think, 1,100 USD. That's not a solid figure, that's just from my memory. The resources that I've been discussing in this video, depending on how many you decide to use, could set you back anywhere from $550 bare minimum if you're just going to use UWorld, and honestly, probably up to about 1,500 USD. It's a lot of money, I know. But the unfortunate reality of it all is the whole US process and the whole US application process to becoming a doctor is very, very expensive. When it comes to exam day, I'm gonna link in that video that I was talking about from Dirty Medicine, and he basically explains what you should do before exam day. But just to give you a quick synopsis, 2 weeks before, try and get as good sleep as possible. Aim to sleep early and for at least 8 hours every single night. The reason why I say it's so important to get good sleep 2 weeks beforehand is to cover yourself in case you don't manage to sleep well the night before. Being completely honest and transparent with you, that was something that I was really worried about. In the end, I ended up getting quite good sleep because I was in a rhythm. But from talking to other people, if you prioritize your sleep 2 weeks before the exam and you have a terrible night's sleep because you're stressed and whatnot, it's okay, I promise you, because the adrenaline will pull you through. But, like it says in Dirty Medicine's video, try and exercise the day before to be as tired as possible that evening. And also make sure to limit your caffeine intake the day before. And what you can also do is wake up way earlier than you normally do, so you tire yourself earlier that day. And when you finish the exam, you can give yourself a good pat on the back because you basically just finished one of the most difficult exams there is out there. So guys, that's everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, comment them down below and I will answer them. If you enjoyed the video, also subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot. And in the description as well, there is a link to my Instagram if you want to follow it. Once again guys, thank you so much for watching. Much love. I'll see you guys in the next video.